Mountain Building Part 2, for example. You'll see Tectonic mountains and very simple paleogeographic maps and so on. And if you, you're welcome to save any of these images and use them in your own teaching however you wish. They were all made for the guide because we found that so many of the geologic illustrations that are out there just didn't seem well suited for a student audience. They were either made for the general public or for professional geologists and so on. So I'm going to go back now to the series here. Now you may or may not have reason to go to these other places, but there is a downloadable PDF of several hundred pages available for each of these regions, and they're all organized in the same way, all with images that you can use. So the idea was to create these for teachers all across the country, but it also enables you, for example, if you happen to want to bring in, say, the Grand Canyon into your teaching or some other part of the country as a contrast to what's here in Central New York, it's all there. For a few of these, there is not a website to visit yet. I guess they all say visit website, but some of them don't actually take you. I think if you go here, it just has downloads. And if you go to the downloads, you can download it chapter by chapter if you don't want to download the whole book. That's the main reason for visit the website. But some of these we don't actually have up yet because they were created just in the past few years and we hadn't had the bandwidth yet. And all of this content will be eventually migrated into some other structures so that you can access it in other ways as well. Don, do you want to say anything more about that? Don, I think now you're muted.
You are correct. I think we should move on to other resources and talk climate and energy. Actually, let me flip back over to the agenda. And I think I'm gonna ask Ingrid to talk. Well, I'll say a few words about programs in general, and then I'll ask Ingrid to talk about the New York and Massachusetts clearinghouses. So just keep me to 2 minutes on this. You can click on the agenda to the climate change and energy resources page of the website and explore around there. That includes our teacher-friendly guide to climate change, which is, the PDF is free, and individual chapters can be downloaded as well. I will also note that that's an award-winning resource. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ingrid.
Okay.
I'll stop sharing.
All right, and I'll share my screen. And while I'm doing that, I want to say hi to Corrine Briggs, who was a wonderful teacher for my son. So hi, Corrine.
And a wonderful former student of mine.
All right, so here's, again, PRI's homepage. And to get to our climate and energy pages, you'd go to education, to the education tab, and then climate change and energy. And I'm just going to go through a few of these pages. I've already preloaded them just to save time because my internet's not that fast here. I don't think I'll go to the teacher-friendly guide to climate change other than, well, maybe I should say one thing about it. Let's see. As Don mentioned, you can download it here, and then you can get to a web page that we call Teach Climate Science. which is right now a WordPress site, but we're working on migrating all this content to PRI's website. And it's a little hidden here, but there is a link called Resources and Workshops. And if you click on that, you'll get some nice, really nice lessons that our colleague Alex Moore created. I think some of these would be tough to use now. They're more classroom activities, but some of them, for instance, this one, calculating biomass and carbon storage for trees, it's really students going out and measuring the circumference of a tree, and then using that and going through some calculations, and then looking up on a chart to see, given the size of the tree, how much carbon is stored in it. Though here you have just biomass, you have to go through a few steps to get to carbon. So there are some activities there. On the climate change and energy programs page, a lot of this stuff is unfortunately not that relevant now. We would love to have you come to the Museum of the Earth or Cayuga Nature Center with your class and do a group program, but we can't do that now. But at the bottom of the page, actually partway down, you get some links to our YouTube channels where there might be some interesting videos. This is a legacy blog that has a lot of content, especially really thoughtful pieces that Dawn has written. We have a new blog on the current website, but here you can get to some older content. And then links to some of online presentations. Most of these are Dawn's, which are really fun and thought-provoking videos to watch. All right, we already talked about the teacher-friendly guide. Talk a bit about the clearinghouses. So I curate 2 online clearinghouses for climate change data, one for New York and one for Massachusetts. These are not really intended as teaching sites. They're more meant for local government officials. But it turns out there are a lot of resources on them which I think could be useful in a classroom. So I'll just show you one thing from the New York Clearinghouse. So it's a site, there's where you can do a keyword search and you can find all sorts of documents or data sets or maps having to do with climate change in New York State. They're on the order of 2,000 resources there, and a few hundred of those are either maps or data sets. And I'll just show you, since we're short on time, the maps page. We have a custom tool on this site that we developed, and I'll briefly show you one thing on that, but also we've highlighted many, many other mapping tools that are online that you or your students could explore to learn about climate change, to learn about its impacts, to learn about ways to adapt to it and mitigate it, though the focus of this site is mostly adaptation. So just to point out, there's a long, long list of things you can explore. On the map, you can turn on a lot of data layers, and I would say that this is a great place to get climate projections. So projections of what future climate might look like in New York State. That's data that's kind of hard to find in any other place. So the Clearinghouse is an excellent source for that, particularly for New York. So here you see climate projections. You can go on. Here you can turn on some layers. Let's say we want to look at days in the future where number of days per year where the temperature is projected to be above 90 degrees. And here's the map. You might wonder what you're seeing, so you have to go to the Controls and Legends tab. And then this is actually a dynamic legend, so you can summarize in different ways by county or by watershed, and then you can look at different future time periods by clicking through here, different scenarios for greenhouse gas emissions, if we have high emissions or we have low emissions, and you can look at projected changes in the future. You can also click on these and get a table of data. So Clearinghouse is definitely a good source for climate projections, very locally focused. All right, next I wanted to show you our citizen science page. I would say there might be 2 things here of interest for you and your students. One is we have a tree phenology project at the Nature Center where we and visitors can observe trees and look for seasonal changes, like things that are happening now or will very soon, of buds breaking and leaves coming out. And I'm creating a video series. So this is a video I took just about a week ago, a little over a week ago, of what's happening at the Nature Center, and I'll be adding. So if you want to follow me and sort of follow what's happening at the Nature Center as spring emerges, you can come here. And then we also have a curriculum. It's called Tracking Climate in Your Backyard, that was developed a few years ago together with 4-H. And there are activities here that you can download. And you could have your students do. I would say they're geared at elementary age students, but maybe even for high school students right now, there's some simple things that they could go outside and do on their own and learn from. This is one about tree rings, what you can learn about past climates from tree rings. So you could have them go outside and find a tree stump, or if they can't find one, they can use this one on the page. So some nice resources here on the citizen science page. Let's see, climate change in central New York page. Here there's some climate data that your students could explore, both historical and projected. So just some graphs. And when I say explore, it's really just sort of looking at graphs. It's not at the depth of being able to interact with it like you could do on the Clearinghouse that I just showed you. But some things for them to look at and think about. Then we have some PDFs of some brochures that students could download to read about the impact of climate change on our region's plants and wildlife. So we have 4 brochures here. And also links to other resources. Again, the New York Clearinghouse and Northeast Regional Climate Center at Cornell. Oh, and also a report from New York State. This would be more for students doing research, I think. And then finally, I wanted to show you, we have a page called Environmental Data, and we list here basically data that we collect at either the Nature Center or the museum. So we have weather stations at each site. Right now, the Nature Center weather station is operating, but it's not communicating with the outside world, unfortunately. But the museum's weather station is, and you can go see that data on Weather Underground if you click that link. So here it is. Oh no, it says offline. Must be down. Well, something must have happened since I last was at work. You can see some rain precipitation data that we collect. Soil temperature profiles we don't have available online, nor do we have our CO2 data available yet, but we're working on these things. So hopefully soon we have, hope to be able to provide more data that people could access remotely. All right, so I think I will stop there. Maybe I'll just go back. This is the main climate change and energy education page where you can get to all these pages that I just showed you, plus other ones. So here's one about sugar maples and climate change, critical zone science, weather safety information, and this is our current blog. All right, I will stop sharing. Don, you're muted.
Yes, I just realized.
Okay.
So that's most of what we've got, but we do have a few minutes for questions. I'm gonna, the evaluation form is linked from the agenda, and I also just put it into the chat. Are there other questions? I will unfortunately note that I'm embarrassed to say that I thought we were recording from the outset, but we were not. So I started the recording about 15 minutes ago, I think. So we just got the end of this recorded, but we do have Mondays recorded. So if I was going to screw up in some way, that was the good way to do it, because on Monday we did the first half of the agenda in 50 minutes and the second half in 10. So we've got the second half a little bit more spread out on this one. Okay, so dig into the evaluation. Let us know. Yes, and the links are on the agenda, that was in the email, as well as I will post the agenda link into the chat again here too.
We will be creating some additional resources that will come online in the coming weeks, including so basically a virtual tour of the museum in some form, and as well as other kinds of resources. And if there's something in particular that you think you need, that you think it's conceivable that we could create in the coming weeks, please do let us know.